Gloom syndrome is something I discovered. I can only say that it's like living in a windowless room all your life and knowing the room is dull, for all over is an unremarkable wallpaper, but it begins to peel at points and you discover something underneath, only to keep peeling away until a horrific thing appears on the once covered walls. Once you've seen what lies underneath a dull wallpaper, you desperately try to make it stick back on the walls. But what is seen can never be unseen, and the pieces you try to paste back always come loose, more and more each time, until what you are surrounded by is in your face and unavoidable. The room becomes like a dungeon. These spots that began to peel are a metaphor for realizations I made in life, often guided by the music, films, and books that I consumed. This is not to say that it is some sort of subgenre I made up to describe certain artistic creations, for in reality they are few and far between to count as a subgenre. I did not invent it because I believe it has always existed and has manifested it in people long dead and from far away from where I have ever lived. I believe Gloom syndrome is like a horrific defect in the DNA that acts as a schism between the afflicted and everything else. Like a Lovecraftian protagonist such as Robert Olmsted or Arthur Jermyn, I know it is in the blood, and with deep reluctance I recall their fates, even if they are mere fiction. The word gloom came to me from various sources. It first came from the music of Goalhammer, where an album and numerous songs of theirs featured this word, gloom. The band, hardly mainstream even in the metal scene, and long since split up, and not coming from the West but Japan, was a shock find for me. The music was crude and raw, made by 3 Japanese women who had only learned their instruments a year prior to releasing anything. I read every interview I could about the band, especially by Vivian Slaughter, the founder, and the things they said were very relatable despite our differences. To me it felt like there was someone else who suffered from a malady once thought to be one of a kind. Now, when I read The Call of Cthulhu, I think of Henry Anthony Wilcox, who by no desire of his own carved a hideous bas-relief, and I think of the night Cthulhu stirred an Orlia and madness spread amongst a few sensitive dreamers across the world. I came up with the idea of thinking that those who came into contact with Goalhammer might have a strong likeness. I discovered the music of Corrupted, cited as a respected band by Goalhammer. Then Skitliff, the band of the husband of Vivian Slaughter. Then came Celtic Frost, the band that inspired Goalhammer. I sought to emulate the music I heard after getting a guitar and writing copious lyrics that came faster than I could write. But I lacked the concentration I needed to create anything of value though I did create the term then, Gloom syndrome. For a while, after graduating in 2011, I forgot about this issue. I left the country I grew up in, that dismal, frustrating place where freedom and happiness always evaded me, and optimism came over me having moved to Europe, but it wouldn't last. In some recent year, I ran into the man who founded Celtic Frost and who Vivian Slaughter of Goalhammer idolized.
Vivian Slaughter.
You want to hear too, Tom?
I couldn't believe it at first, but it really was him. Thomas Gabriel Fischer. I live in Zurich and I still live there, and I live a mere 2 minutes walk away from where H.R. Giger lived and had now died recently. Giger and Fischer were good friends, and on my way to gym, I often passed them sitting in the garden drinking wine together. I began to read up on him, and like with Vivian Slaughter, I felt a kinship. I grew despondent and felt no connection to this new society which I belonged to through my blood and citizenship. There was a small English bookstore which became a refuge for me in my free time. One day I saw a book there. It was small, thin, barely anything to it, and it costed only a couple francs. The Life of a Stupid Man by Ryunosuke Akutagawa. The word gloom appeared numerous times in that little book. Not only that, but the autobiographical pieces featured in that book were things I felt could come from my own if I ever were to write one. I read more. No Longer Human by Osamu Dazai, Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment, and Notes from Underground featured this word here and there over and over again. Worst of all was Hermann Hesse's Steppenwolf. That book was nothing less than a mirror to me. Again the word reappeared. Why did this word occur so much? To my knowledge it isn't exactly a very common adjective, and why did I keep encountering it? I felt that there was truly something more here. I looked up these writers and musicians, discovering anything I could about who they really were. I saw an undeniable pattern form, and this gloom syndrome seemed to have infected all of us. The idea of an infectious virus was bolstered by a film I discovered in the same period called Pulse. Seemingly random people around the globe suddenly suffer from acute reclusiveness and depression, only to disappear, leaving only a blackness behind on the wall or the ground where they stood. Those who come into contact with this malignant, nameless malady are infected and suffer the same fate eventually. No film moved or fascinated me quite like this one. The horror was utterly bleak and unnerving. What the horror is never made clear in that film. It is glimpsed and uncertain, and that's how I felt at that time of life. If it was a syndrome like I believed, then I tried to treat it. Like Dagon's unknown narrator, I tried drugs to make life endurable, legal as well as illegal, but always it was only a transient surcease. Gym provided me a few hours of relief each day, and it was something I'm still good at, and something I still do. Then came Lovecraft, and that changed everything. At first, his horror at a superficial level astounded me. Nobody wrote stories like his, and his prose was one of a kind. The creatures he imagined and the worlds beyond ours were revolutionary in horror. I researched his life, buying the best biography I could about him, and reading his quotes. I never felt a stronger feeling upon doing so that reincarnation might actually be a possibility. Our circumstances, dispositions, and views of life were at times perfectly aligned. This long-dead author of Providence discovered the same thing I did, the same dread feeling about the nature of life that can only be seen by certain people given the right circumstances. When I read Lovecraft now, I no longer just see humanity's struggle against bizarre entities. I see what I strongly believe was what he was really trying to describe about life. It is no coincidence that when writing this piece to make this video, that the first thing that came to my mind was that metaphor of the room with the dull wallpaper and the peeling back thereof to expose what really housed me, us, humanity, all of us. How many of Lovecraft's tales are vehicles for that same metaphor? The statement of Randolph Carter, Dagon, the Call of Cthulhu, At the Mountains of Madness, The Outsider, Pickman's Model, The Rats in the Walls, and the Arthur Jermyn story. All these stories deal with the discovery of something that should be left alone. The unmentionable and accursed Necronomicon, feared by all humans with knowledge of the book, reveals the true nature of life. How many of his protagonists loathe to read it? How many would choose the bliss of not thinking these things every day? Why make this video? I almost regret it because I feel despite numerous revisions and cuts, it still stinks of narcissism and self-pity, though this was not the goal at all. My life has been of general comfort. I've never faced war or hunger or physical or sexual abuse. I'm not a woman living in some Islamic hellhole or a thought criminal in North Korea. I made it basically because everything I've said has been echoing in my head for 10 or more years, and now I have this as an outlet. I made it not for the general public because I think that most people, while perhaps having sympathy or bewilderment at what I say, will not get it. I hate this thing. I hate having this shit in my mind. I would not make this video if I thought I didn't have to. I would trade anything to be normal, a free spirit, to be able to overlook these realizations I live with and enjoy the things I absolutely know life can offer because I have experienced these moments. Times of life, not just of relief of what I call gloom syndrome, but a total absence of it, like it never even existed. Life can be beautiful, but I have yet to ever hold on to that beauty once I found it. I made it with the same hopes of a person trapped on an island has when putting a message into a bottle. Perhaps some other person who was drawn to Lovecraft as I was will see this video and relate and be able to learn more about themselves. And now we reach today, December 2016. My conclusion, whether it's absurdly stupid or false, is that gloom syndrome is a real thing. It's not mere depression. It's not something that can be overcome by brief hedonistic distractions. It's also something not everyone can contract. I know quite a few people that are just incapable of having the syndrome or understanding anything about it, no matter how you try to put it. Happy-go-lucky types who just seem to be wired differently. I don't know. Gloom syndrome does not render one catatonic with despair or an inability to live. You live, you go about your obligations of day-to-day life. However, it is always there in your mind at some degree, like a black speck on an otherwise nice painting, or like a static hiss of an old TV. You always feel it, except in a few beautiful moments in life. It's like trying to tune an old radio, trying to find some sort of clarity amongst a garbled mess of noise. As quickly as you find it, it goes. I don't know if there is a cure or a lasting treatment for this problem. These moments of utter tranquility in my life make me think there is one. The hope of finding it is why I'm still alive.